Yes.
Might sound good.
All right. Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to this live stream. To the 0 people watching, we really appreciate it. Just kidding. Okay, so yeah, we're really excited for this one. Guys, this is Kim. This is somebody I've mentioned to you about that will be coming on the channel more and more. And together we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. So stay tuned. We're going to announce some of that later on in the show, but for now, we're just going to get started. Kim, say hi to the folks.
Hi. Thanks, Joel. Thanks for this is exciting. Our first live together. We've done a lot of things individually and collaborated on, quite a few other things, but this is our first collaboration on YouTube. More to come.
Yep, more to come. So yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We have a very interesting one tonight. Basically, the discussion between whether there's multiple addictions or just one addiction. And to kind of give you guys a premise of how this conversation even started. So last week, it was like maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, I reached out to Kim and I was like telling her like, hey, like I got a few addictions I'm working on, and I was kind of worried about them and kind of really stuck in the mud. So I felt. And I was getting to this point where I was feeling a little exhausted because I'm like, okay, I have all these addictions, right? I have addiction, this, that. I've quit so many. And it's like, is this ever going to end? And Kim really shared a new perspective on it that instantly kind of gave me some relief and helped me start to reframe things and pretty much this whole last 6.5 years in a different light. So Kim, would you want to kind of dive into talking about what that insight you had was?
Yeah, well, like you said, so I'm listening to you say, and I think you also, um, had listened to one of your other videos too, and then in our conversation, you were like, well, I got over, my addiction to weed, but now I'm working on this other addiction, my addiction to salt and my addiction to, like all of these others, and I was like, well, wait a minute, like, so how many addictions do we have, right? Like, how exhausting. And really, it just comes down to we have, and I say we have the disease of addiction. Period. It's not about, we all have our different drugs of choice, behaviors of choice, substances of choice, but it's just really one addiction. And you also talked about, or we hear often, it's like the whack-a-mole game, like I whacked that, from the carnival. I, got that one down and now another one popped up. And then I whacked that one down and now another one came up. And it's like, how, does it ever end? And when we look at it from, because that to me just feels hopeless, right? I'm always
For
going to
sure.
be like trying to get rid of all my addictions. And when I get one, like cured, or, one is under control, then another one comes up. So if we look at it as just, we have addiction, we have the disease of addiction, it's easier to look at, and really that's a really simple definition of any behavior we continue to do despite having negative consequences, right? Any behavior, meaning, anything. So I think that, you know we can put down our drugs of choice, the ones that give us the most consequences, or the um, consequential, like the ones that are, you know really harming, right? We can stop that. But if we don't really address what's going on internally, um, we're always going to be seeking something outside of ourselves for relief.
Right.
It doesn't matter how
Yeah.
many years of sobriety we have. Um, we hear oftentimes people are, okay, well, I haven't used drugs and alcohol for years, but now I'm addicted to sugar, or I'm addicted to salt, or now I'm shopping too much. Or so really, what is it? What is it that we're seeking? What are we seeking relief from? Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And that was the that was the insight that you gave me the other week, because I was like, man, I got this whole issue with salt, right? I have to go through a ton of recovery to get rid of the salt, right? And it was just, I felt that what you just said, overwhelm. I felt hopeless.
Hmm.
I'm like, is there ever an end to this? And when thinking about it as, oh, this is a personality trait, and really it's always gonna try to manifest itself in something. And then when I beat the salt, right, then it's gonna be, I don't know, playing guitar. Who knows what it could be? But it's always that feeling of being unsatisfied, unfulfilled within. And I think
Yeah.
this is one of the big difficulties that every human being faces, not just people in recovery, right? It's like, why do I feel empty inside? Um, I haven't met somebody in my life that says like, yeah, I'm at total peace within, right? So it's nice to know that, okay, this might not be
Yeah.
like, this is kind of normal. However, as we're on here today, there are ways to improve on this and to not let it cause so much suffering in our lives. So I'm curious, like from your situation and your experience, guys, if you don't know, Kim has over 13 years of sobriety. So she has a lot of experience, a lot of years not using substances. What are some of the things that has helped you feel that internal peace within, especially on the days where you don't really, it's not there?
Right. So, and when you say that, like on the days that I look at it as I have to maintain my recovery, right? I have to do the things that continually feed me, feed my soul, feed my spirit, being in balance with, physical, mental. We say, addiction leaves us bankrupt spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, right? All of those areas. So, doing inventories of like checking in with ourselves. How am I feeling? It's that, am I today in, feeling anxious? And it's like having addiction is also, it's like having an itch and wanting to scratch it with something, right?
So
Like I
bad.
need relief and I need it like now.
Good point.
So, and so, yeah, the things that I do, and I know what my cues are too when I'm, not in alignment with my recovery energy or vibration, right? I don't have a sense of peace or well-being. It's like a lack of ease, which is really what disease means. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to really break it down simple, well, granted, we'll go into the definition of disease, but it's a sense or lack of ease in my
Yeah. A
in my
dis-ease.
a
Dis-ease.
dis-ease, lack of
Yeah.
ease,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yeah, what do we do, right? Well, first of all, we have to have the awareness, right? I can run on self will and be like, when I come to a point of, exhaustion, or, am I working too much? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where is it manifesting in my life when I feel that sense of lack of ease? Um, and really, to me, it's about filling that void. There's a void when we put the substances down or any behavior that we do. There is this feeling of a void, and I'm trying to fill that void, that internal sense, with something outside of myself. So it
Yes.
doesn't really matter
100%.
if it's a substance or, you know, just different things have more consequences to them, more serious
Right.
consequences, right? So yeah, what do we do?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
from
an example
real.
from that, going off that, is that before this live stream, I was, yeah, feeling some anxiety. Like, Kim and I, this is our first one. We've been really planning for it and put a lot of work into it. And so I love these keto white chocolate bars, right, from this brand called Evolved. Not sponsoring today's video, but maybe one day. And they're so good. And for a long time, like we were talking about, I thought I had an addiction to them because I would kind of overeat them. Um, And my reaction was like, I want to go eat this right now, because I would stop thinking about this. I would get to take a break. I wanted that relief from the anxiety so bad. Instead, what I did is I hopped in the shower, took a cold shower, did something that was pushing me forward towards my path, towards my values. And I think values are a big thing. Is that whenever I want to go use a substance or do a behavior, what's really helped me is to say, okay, what are my values? And it's doing this behavior, aka going binge watching movies or going and eating a bunch of salty food or whatever, is that in line with my values? And usually
Right.
the answer has been no. And that's really helped kind of say, okay, what do I want to do different in that situation?
That's a good point. The other thing that I will do is ask myself, what is it that I'm trying to not feel?
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
So you're saying, like I'm trying not to feel this angst, this anxiety. I'm feeling anxious, so I want to eat, my white chocolate or whatever to not feel that anxiety. Right. So if we
Mm-hmm.
just check in with ourselves, what is it that I'm not trying? What is it that I'm trying to distract? Oftentimes, it's wanting to just a distraction, right? Like how many of us distract ourselves on our social media, right?
Ooh,
Or you
guilty.
know, yeah. So it's really, yeah, it starts out with the awareness. What is it that I'm trying to not feel? How am I trying to distract my feelings, distract myself, escape? Um, you know, there's all kinds of it. And then knowing what those things are that bring us relief. And
Mm,
oftentimes too, we talk about, what's our spiritual condition? Am I grounded? Am I doing the things that help me to feel connected? It's a disconnect. Disease is like addiction is a disconnect to both our our spirits, our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, our um, so how can I reconnect back to
to that, to
my
source.
body by
Yeah.
body, mind, and spirit, right?
Right.
And we can talk about that too. So body, mind, and spirit, right? All of those. And if you look at my YouTube channel, Full Circle Sobriety, there's one about the 5 bodies, an interview with Nikki Myers. And so we have these, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual layers to us. And when one is out of sync, right, there's a ripple effect. It affects all. It affects the other levels, right? When
Yeah.
I'm not feeling good physically, if I'm not getting movement, moving out some of that stuck energy or anxiety, or just moving,
Hmm.
that can
Right.
that has a ripple effect and a rollover into how I feel emotionally. Um, when's the last time I, I'll say, connected in nature, went for a walk, went for a hike, went sat down by the water, went swimming, connected. When's the last time I meditated, prayed? Oftentimes that awareness comes to like, oh yeah, I've been working from sun up to sundown, and no wonder I feel this way, and I want to reach for, the white chocolate, and like I
Yeah.
just want to.
Escape. Yeah. And they're all connected
Mhm.
too, which I think is another important point. Like they're not
Yeah.
separate from each other. They are on a practical
Mhm.
sense, but I find that too, Kim. Like when my when my body isn't right, my mind starts to go a little bit. There we go. We're like opposite because of the camera angle. And then when my body, and then when my mind isn't right, the spirit starts to drain a little bit. And then it just kind of
Mhm.
becomes a negative loop. And what I found is that when I start to replenish one of those areas, it does the exact opposite, right? It feeds into the next one, and then that feeds into the next one.
Yes.
So it can go up and it can go down. I'm
Yes.
curious, a personal question. When you were in your active addiction, really at your low point, where do you think out of those three, the body, mind, and spirit, was most affected by your use? And how was that affected?
Which one was the most?
Yeah, like which one do you think that the drugs really affected the most? Or was it all three?
Yeah, I mean, you got to say all three because physically I was malnutritioned. I had lost so much weight. I was experiencing neuropathy, wasn't sleeping, you know, just not physically healthy. But my senses say spiritually,
Okay.
everything in my spirit that in the behavior in what I was doing was um, totally out of alignment with who I really am,
Yeah.
who any of us really are, right? Because that's where we get that feeling of guilt and shame, because we're really out of alignment with our innate values. Um, if we didn't feel guilt and shame, we wouldn't care, at some level. But at some level, we do. So spiritually, total disconnect. Even though I was showing up at church every week and praying. But you know what? So that's a whole nother topic we could talk about of the spirituality and how, actually
Oh, we will.
putting our face to the floor and praying got us, brought us a lot of relief. But anyway, yeah,
What
we've got a lot to talk about.
Oh, we do. Yeah. And for the audience, what drugs or substances were you hooked on? What were your big ones?
Okay, so here we go again, right? So like what was your addiction, right? And I just say all and more.
Okay.
All and more. All right. So saying that, um, my drugs of choice were cocaine and opiates. Eventually, at the end, smoking crack cocaine. However, with that, in my 20s, when all I was doing was, when cocaine was my drug of choice, and then I was also drinking right alongside with it, right? Um, and we often hear, well, alcohol wasn't my thing. So, and here we go into so I should be able to, I can drink because drinking was never, I could care less if I drank or not. However, I every time I relapsed, it started with a drink.
Okay.
Right. So, and here's the deal. Our brains, we don't have the addiction I don't have the addiction of cocaine. I don't have, we don't have just an addiction of whatever our drug of choice is. We just have addiction.
Yeah.
The fact that we choose certain substances over others really is a mute point, because at any time when I pick up anything that is mind or mood altering and starts hitting those dopamine receptors, I will eventually end up back using whatever it was that I was using at the same, if not more, than what I stopped at.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. I didn't like to smoke weed. I hated that feeling. I hated the feeling of being drunk. But I can tell you, if I decided to just, weed isn't my thing. I don't care for it so much. I can take a hit of that blunt right now. It's not going to be a big deal.
I get what you're saying.
I guarantee you, it may not be tomorrow or next week or a month from now, but it will flip that switch back on that says more. And I won't get the effect from weed that I really want. And eventually I will end up back using my drug of choice.
Drug of choice. Yeah. For my drugs of choice were marijuana, Adderall for a while. Got kind of really enjoyed that, and Molly, like the party drugs. And let's see what some other big ones were. And then I drank addictively as well. So it wasn't. It was a host of them. And I know too, like if I would have started doing cocaine or heroin or whatever, I would have been hooked. So it's just
Mhm.
really, like you said, like I chose, it's just whatever drug you choose to fill that
The
hole.
void.
And it's
Yeah.
good to remember that too, because then again, if I had the mentality, well, I was hooked on weed, so I can go, try coke. It's probably not going to affect me, right? Obviously, that's stupid.
Today.
I did, I did that. Oh yeah, and I think it is important to talk about too the specifics, just because for quitting anyway, for people that are dealing with a certain substance, it can be very helpful to find somebody that did spend a lot of time with that particular substance. Because again, I'm not going to go to someone who shot meth, or I don't know if you shoot meth. See, I don't even know, who did meth to try to quit, I don't know, porn or something like that, right? It's just like you're
Mhm.
going to go to somebody that has had that experience. So yeah, I mean, really interesting stuff. And guys, like if you have any questions or comments or anything, please feel free to leave them, and we'll answer your questions. It's an interesting topic, and it's definitely kind of reframing my whole view on addiction. And
Mhm.
it's, again, like I said at the beginning, it's brought me a lot of peace, because now I don't feel like, oh my God, everything that I enjoy is now an addiction.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I was telling Kim. I'm like, Kim, I really want to watch like a show, but I have an addiction to
Addiction
Disney
to
Plus.
Netflix.
And Kim's like, Joel, like I think you're missing the point. I was like, all right, tell me more. And yeah, so, and again, I still have to be careful, like that when it starts to go over, like, am I using this to escape emotions and feelings? And that's when the red. That's when I think it becomes a red flag, and something to really take a look at. So yeah,
And is it causing a consequence?
yeah,
Is there a
most
consequence to myself and or others? Like, what's it costing me and what's it costing others?
for sure. What were
Yeah.
some of the things that cost you, Kim, personally, when you were using?
My use, well, by the time I went to rehab, and the subsequent year after that, in order to be in recovery and to stay in recovery, I ended up losing everything. Really, it cost me, uh, it cost me connection to my family, for one, right? It cost me, I had a business, a real estate investment business that, I lost everything. It was during like 2008 when we had the real estate uh, tumble at that time, right? But I also chose, after I got into recovery, could see the insanity of my life and chose to like, in losing everything, I got my life back, right?
Wow.
So instead of being, I was chasing the material things. I was chasing everything had to look a certain way. Um, you know, on the outside, my life looked amazing. I had a beautiful home and, vacation cabin up north and vacations in Florida and all of the toys and boats and vehicles and all of that,
The husband,
and
the
the
relationship. Yeah.
husband, awesome husband, beautiful kids, and everything looks great. I'm the lunch mom, and the party, doing all the kid parties in school, like every single one, and taking my kids to sports and volleyball and skateboarding and showing up in church every week, and then on the outside, right? So like it's like walking around with that mask, but
Sure.
on the inside was totally just dying inside. And my thing was, is I kept saying, I can't stop, because if I stop, who's going to take care of all of this? Who's going to, I can't, like, I have to keep going. I can't just go sit down in treatment somewhere for like, who's going to take care of, the kids and the house and the business and the this and the that, well, yeah, it all got worked out. Right. But then
Yeah.
after, yeah, after, going through treatment and and getting support, right? Connection to others, right? Addiction is a disease of isolation.
Definitely.
So once I started to get, connected to community, to other people in recovery, to professional, counseling and all of that. Um, the really cool thing about recovery is that it gives us choices, right? We're able to make other choices in our lives. So,
For anybody that, if they came to you, I mean, you do some coaching as well. Someone comes to
mhm.
you and says, Kim, like, I don't even know where to start. Like, you know, I feel empty inside. My body, mind, and spirit is shot. What do you suggest to them? Like, how do you help them through that period? Because that's oftentimes the hardest period to get through. That initial, just like,
Yeah, well, first of all, picking up the phone and making the call, making a decision to even, you know, check it out, like what's available, right? I didn't know the options that were even available to me. Like what can I do about it? And so, I mean, there are so many different. As a coach, our it's about multiple pathways. Not one pathway is the pathway for everyone,
for
right?
sure.
So
Yeah.
it would be really about just getting to know them and what um, what would be a good fit, providing options, providing like here's and looking at what's available in their community and filling out like the more recovery capital that we can provide, foundation supports, who around you is could be of a support, and who could we add to your circle of support. And sometimes it's like, no, I don't want anybody to know about this. That's okay. It all depends on where, each person that comes in like has different is at a different place and has, based on, shame, stigma, the stereotypes, what their careers like, their family beliefs. So you really have to take each person individually and what they're, meet them where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
and then offer solutions for them to decide and discern for themselves what they think would be a good fit. Sometimes it is just connecting with a coach for a period of time on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
um, it depends on what level of addiction they're in too, right? There's different
Yep.
stages. There's different stage, and depends on the stage of change they're in. Are they just contemplating, or are they in, preparation and ready to take action?
Definitely. Yeah. Are they further along in their journey? Because I think that can be applied inwards as well to oneself. So, what I found
Yeah.
as I've progressed is that I become my own best coach, right? I'm the guy that I'm going to go to really know what I need to do next. And that might be reaching out to somebody for help for sure. It's, yeah, like, yeah, and asking for help, doing all that. And yeah, I lost my train of thought there. So, so keep going, Kim.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't try to coach myself, but what I'm hearing you say is that you check in with yourself and your own awareness, like you have enough experience now
There we
to
go.
know what your
Yeah.
cues are when you're out of sync or out of alignment, and you also have some evidence and experience to know like what you need, what solutions you have, in your recovery capital that work for you, right? Like, oh, when's the
Well
last time
said.
I talked to, you know, my peeps, my tribe?
Sponsor.
I say
Yeah.
like my tribe, who's your
Yeah.
tribe, right? Whether it's a sponsor or, just another person maybe you met. I mean, there's so many,
Yeah.
different recovery coaches or recovery supports. Like, what are your supports? And that's really our role, is to
And
help find that.
yeah, absolutely. And two, it was like I think the kind of point that was coming up is that that can change over time. Like these multiple pathways can evolve and change. So for
Yeah.
the longest time, that's how I met Kim, guys. I met her at a Buddhist recovery meeting, out of all places. If you're ever going
Meditation meeting.
meditation meeting, yep, and that was like 6 years ago. I spent a lot of time in traditional support groups. Can't say them by name on the air, but I mean, put two and two together, you could probably figure it out. And but now I don't go to support groups anymore because, and a big part of that is because YouTube is now my accountability. YouTube is how I show up for myself and say, okay, if I'm not staying on my path, this is kind of just a big fugazi, right? So we don't want
Mm,
that. Now, she still goes to meetings, right? And those are very helpful for her.
yeah.
We both talk to people. Obviously, we think having external support is really helpful. So, guys, I think we'll take a pause here. We got some comments. We'll go through those and then dive into the second half of this. So, first one we got from the homie Cristiano Orlando. I got excited there. I thought Ronaldo was in on on our stream, but yeah, loving the transparent dedication. Appreciate that, man. And we got our homie Phyllis. What's up, Phyllis?
Phyllis.
If you don't know, we know Phyllis. And
Yeah.
so I used to drink wine, but then I stopped when I started on opioids. Okay, so if I drink wine again, would I get addicted to the substance again? Kim, take that one away.
I used to drink wine, but then I stopped when I started an opiate. So if I drink wine again, would I get addicted to substances again? And if I was coaching Phyllis, I would say, what I would ask her, like, what do you think? You know? Um,
Comment below,
and
Phyllis. What do you think?
yeah, what do you think, Phyllis? Like, do you feel it would be safe to start? And I mean, I only want to. I can share my experience and what I've observed being, working at a clinic and facilitating intensive intensive outpatient groups and coaching and interventions. Right. I don't think I would. So again, if we're coaching as a coaching model, it's not for me to tell her, yes, you're going to get addicted back to opiates again.
Hmm.
Does it leave you vulnerable um, to become to cross addiction? I guess, we call it cross addiction, which just means we're crossing over into other substances. Doesn't mean that, it does leave you vulnerable. Um,
I've
to
thought that
become,
same too. Like, I've always been like, you know what, maybe one day, because drinking, I did binge drink, but I never like loved it. Like I loved weed. Weed was that thing where I just, it's just all
yeah,
the magic came, right? So I was always like, what if I did drink when I was sober? Like, could I handle it? And my thought process is that, for me personally, is that okay, yeah, maybe I could do that for a few weeks or something. But there's gonna be a day where I'm just like, well, fuck it. Let me, guy at the
yeah.
bar is offering to smoke weed. I'm gonna have a hit, and then from there, all of that comes back. So I think
Mhm.
you're right, Kim. It depends on the person, and I like how you said that they have to answer that themselves. I know that's something that I've had to work on, and you've taught me, is that to not tell people what to do, to kind
Yeah,
of
I'm
just
not going
let
to
them
tell
lead.
you what to do, but I can share my experience and what I've observed. And my observation is usually about a year later, they're back in treatment again. And
Correlation doesn't equal causation, but
yeah, and then they stop, right? And it's because, well, now they're, and if they can hold off on not going back to their drug of choice, then then they're drinking too much, right? Because, and here's what happens. So we wanted to talk, and did you want to answer more questions?
so yeah, that answered Phyllis's question, as we can see here, and basically there was just a talk between Phyllis and another person,
Oh,
um,
got you.
and he actually asked a question, so we can dive into that one. Can a
Can a,
substance bring back trauma of past years for you too?
can a substance bring back trauma? Like
I
Bring
believe
back.
yes. I do, and correct me if I'm wrong. Do you mean the memories of trauma? Because if that's the case, then yeah, I have that quite frequently. Like when I do watch a movie, my consciousness almost reverts back to when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, my parents, the way they, I don't know how to say this, the and it wasn't like a them thing, right? It was just like, you're a kid, you get put in the front of the TV, so then parents can go do their thing, right? So I spent a lot of years in the front of the TV, and a lot of years of that was very lonely. So I felt a lot of loneliness. So whenever I watch TV, after a while, I start to feel loneliness come back up, and I just remember feeling just so alone in the world, like no one was there. What am I doing on this planet? Those kind of thoughts and feelings. So I do believe it's true that for in my opinion, that it can bring back kind of traumatic memories, emotions, etc. How about you,
Mhm.
Kim? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of. I don't quite understand the question, but like using a substance to bring back trauma of past years. I feel like if I started using again, I would just be right back in where I left off, right? And it would probably bring up, uh, I mean, I haven't,
Should we
yeah,
try it?
my,
No, just kidding.
yeah, no.
If you
That's
want Kim to
exactly
try,
what I
guys,
meant.
put a one in the comments.
Memories and feelings. Right. I mean, I just remember an overall, like just an over, always feeling just this huge weight, like this burden, and waking up in the morning before even getting out of bed and feeling this huge sense of dread, and like not even wanting to go to sleep at night because I didn't want to wake up in the next day and have to do like if I could just, stay awake and just keep going on using and not have to, you know, go to sleep and then wake up in that moment when you just like eyes aren't even open and you're like, oh, again, another
Right.
day. Okay, where's my stuff? Where did I leave my drugs? Where did I put my stuff? How am I going to get today? Do I have enough to use today? Do I have the money? What lies am I going to tell today in order to get what I need? All of that, like even just thinking of it brings up the trauma of addiction,
There we
right? I
go.
mean,
Yeah.
being in an active addiction is traumatic. It is traumatic. But here's the cool thing, being in recovery, once we put the substances down, then we have the opportunity to work on trauma, right? There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
resources available today that help to address trauma, to move, because when we're using, right, we're just shoving down those feelings. There's still, so in Yoga for 12-Step Recovery, Y12SR, we say our motto is um, the the issues live in our tissues, right? So, and then we get sober and those issues are still
In the
there.
tissues.
They're
Yep.
still in our tissues. Like we have muscle memory, we have body memory, we have on our cellular level. So, getting sober helps us. We actually then can help to move that stuck energy out, to process trauma, to process feelings and heal, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that makes sense.
There's some great resources out there, guys. EMDR. I did
Mhm.
that one. Just talk therapy can be helpful
Mhm.
too. Just kind of getting it out. I did one called neurofeedback. Kim, have you heard of neurofeedback?
Yeah.
They put like
Mhm.
electrodes to your brain, and then
Mhm.
and it was interesting because what it does is it taps into the waves. So you have like alpha, gamma, beta, delta waves, and those kind of regulate your how you feel, how you act, and stuff. Um, and a lot of those were dormant. So what it does is it kind of just gets it up and stuff like that. And so it was just a wild experience, and it really helped kind of bring back some of those old memories. Christian asked, where can I find these resources groups for my area? Christian, I'm going to send you a PDF that Kim and I actually put together, as well as Phyllis. So shout out Phyllis. We did it as a group, and it has like 25 plus resources from meetings to online meetings, other support resources, books, movies, YouTube channels that can maybe really help you out and kind of get you on the path. Because I know
Mhm.
what that feels like to just not even know where to start. It's like, what's going on? So I'll grab that for you here.
Yeah, there's also like looking at, like you said, talk therapy, finding a trauma therapist, that like EFT, and you can do like EFT tapping. You can learn on online YouTube EFT tapping, but to really work on like major trauma, and uh, I would recommend getting a professional. Yeah, there you go. There's our resources.
Nice.
And that's what coaches do. That's what we do as recovery coaches, is like we bridge the gap, right? From and helping people find, build their support system.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's a great transition to talk about, guys, our newest project together. So if you've seen in the corner here, there's like a combo logo, and that is our that is our new crew here. It's calling it the Circle, the Sobriety Circle, and it's a combination of Kim's expertise, my expertise. And what we've done is we've created an online community that you guys are welcome to join. It's going to be 27 a month, and what it's going to include is it's going to include a bunch of stuff. We're going to dive into this in the next few minutes here. One of that including like just live resources, connection with Kim and I and other people in the community, and really just being able to form a community with other people that are like-minded, that have your vision, a similar vision, that are on the path to recovery or just even bettering themselves. Because there's a saying, right? Your vibe attracts your tribe. It's a saying that I take with me and think about quite often. So I know when I'm around people like Kim here that are actively working on themselves, that are connected to body, mind, and spirit, I'm going to in turn just kind of, as humans, we just want to fit in, right? So it's like, well, if I don't take care of my body, mind, and spirit, Kim and I are just going to kind of disconnect just organically. And I don't want that. So it pushes me to work harder too, be hitting the gym, etc. Obviously, that's just one thing. So, yeah, Kim, anything you want to add to about the circle?
Yeah, so just it's a community, right? Creating a community, live access to us after hours, after our YouTube. We'll be doing this on a regular basis every Tuesday at the same time, and then going offline and going kind of behind the scenes and live in person, providing support and connecting in community. Again, right, addiction is a disease of isolation, and connection is the antidote to it. So it's a great way to start connecting, right?
For sure. And two, like,
And I
go
do
ahead.
want to add too, it's not just for people who are already in recovery, it's and
Mm,
or even seeking recovery. So
thanks for that clarification. Yeah.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to be like, well, I'm not in recovery, I'm still, you know, I'm trying, or I'd like
Right.
to and want to learn more about it. There's no seeking and or in recovery.
Definitely. Some other stuff we're gonna do too in the group. It's basically like a chat forum, so it's you guys can write in questions, anything you're going through, share stories, etc. And then we'll be like reaching out to you guys, communicating, talking with you, sharing our experience or whatever. And then if one of us is around, which we plan to be, we'll sit. If there are other people that have a similar question, they're welcome to hop in the Google Meet too, and we can just basically talk and just hang out and just get to know each other. Basically, really spread the message that as kind of unique as this can seem, sometime addiction, that it's common, and everyone here, we've struggled with it, so we're all here to support each other. So yeah,
Mhm.
guys, if you'd like to sign up, you can sign up in the link that's posted down below. And we definitely look forward to meeting you and connecting with you and doing these lives. We're going to, like Kim said, we're going to do these every week, potentially twice a week once things get rolling. And so for tonight, for example, for the after hours show afterwards, I'll put another link that you guys can click to that'll take you to another room on StreamYard, and then we can just talk. You can come on, even we can get to meet you personally and ask any questions you want and stuff like that, and a little less PG. No, I'm just kidding. we'll have a good time. So yeah, I'll post that link right here as well. And yeah, we've got a
Awesome. I'm excited. That's
me
fun.
too. Yep. So we got about 15 minutes here. We'll rip it for a little more. Anybody have any questions, or Kim, anything you wanted to tap on? It was
Well,
itching.
I think too, I was hoping to, we could have conversation about disease. Like, there's a lot of people like, it's not what defines addiction as a disease. It's not, people are like, don't believe it's a disease model, even though it is a diagnosis in the DSM-5, substance use disorder. So we could have a conversation about that if that seems doable. I just wanted to say one of the easiest ways that was described to me early on was that was chronic and progressive, right? Like, keep it simple. It's chronic and progressive. Chronic meaning that, people die from it. Like, it becomes, something that is, it's a change. Fatal. It does change the brain, which is also the definition of disease, and the thing that has actually changed in an organ. It does change our brain, going from allowing us to make decisions, not having self-will, and using, against our own self-will. And then progressive, right? Progressive meaning that if we don't do anything about it, it does get worse. It progresses, right? We see that all the time.
I like the topic. I mean, the talking about, is it like the idea of a disease? And because I'm gonna be honest, guys, when Kim first said that at the beginning of our stream, I got an internal reaction, because like, so many people say that, they're like, what? It's not a disease, or like, how could you say it's a disease, right? So coming from the perspective of someone that has that mentality, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. So it does change our brain, right? When we use substances over and over again, it's hitting those dopamine receptors to the point where our brain stops producing dopamine on its own, because the substances are actually making our receptors, like,
Too
more
active.
dopamine, too active, overacting. So our brain is becoming flooded with it, right? And then the tolerance, like, our brain has to, like, it takes more of the substance to get the same effect from it, right? Until we get to a point so that our hedonic set point has been set so high that pleasure from simple things, like just the simplest of things, we don't feel pleasure from. Right. Yeah. We actually need more. So, and then we also get to a point where we have to use just to feel normal. Right? Like, just to feel normal. It's like not even to not go into withdrawals. And our brains will actually, to prevent us from feeling that pain, our brains will actually do anything to not feel that sense of that pain, right? Um,
And usually the first reaction is to go use again,
oh,
to go pick
absolutely.
up
I
the
mean, one of
substance.
the biggest reasons people don't seek, you know, stay in active addiction is because they don't, because this overwhelming sense of fear of the withdrawals, like going through withdrawals, right? Or the pain or the discomfort that they're going to have to go through. And even after putting the substances down, there's this empty void because our brains are not producing dopamine. It takes
Hmm.
time for that to happen again and to re-regulate in our whole central nervous system, and then try to cope with our life and stressors without our substances. All on top of that is overwhelming. So
Sure.
yeah, a lot of barriers.
Phyllis says, "Amen to that. I used to tell my husband taking opioids is not bad. It helps me get up and do things."
That's what I
I
used
roll.
to say. It gives me
I know.
energy. Like I need them to keep going and get all. Who else? How am I going to get all this done? Right? Like it's the most ridiculous thing when that I could say. Right? Like I
Yeah.
need them to keep going. I need them for energy. I can't stop. If I stop, who's going to take care of everything? Right? It's like, oh.
Mine was
Well, and so that's a whole nother topic on minimizing, rationalizing, and
yes,
justifying our use, right?
right.
Just to be normal, right? Yeah, using just to be normal to not go into withdrawals. That was my
Mm-hmm.
biggest fear, and maintaining that like you go on vacation and it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough to get through vacation? Um,
Oh, right, dude.
or
Totally.
whatever we're doing, like all of the energy that it takes to maintain.
I remember when I was smoking weed, we went on a vacation, a family vacation to Oregon, USA. And I was coming off weed for like 5 of the 6 days of that trip. And then the
Mm.
last day I felt great because I was like, I'm not going through weed withdrawals anymore. But yeah, it's brutal. And I'm at my rationalization. So I used to make music, and it was like, if I don't have weed, my music's gonna suck. But the irony was that it just sucked, and so the weed made it seem like it was really good. Because I remember I would have guys over, and I would be like, "Yo, what do you think of my new track?" And their heads wouldn't move, which is not a good sign that your music is good. It's like, all right, and they'd be like, it would get really awkward, and so yeah, it was definitely, yeah, definitely talk about rationalizing and minimizing. Yeah,
Mhm.
great tip.
Yeah.
Um, cool. So, I think that's gonna wrap it up tonight. I don't have really much more on this topic to talk about. Kim, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I
Yeah.
think that's good. I'm looking forward if anyone wants to connect with us in the after hours. And yeah.
Yeah. And guys, follow Kim. She just started her YouTube channel a few weeks ago, and she's got a lot of great interviews. There's going to be one coming out soon with Kevin Griffin. He's a Buddhist meditation teacher and author. Now, we've both seen him in person live at like an event before, and he has a
Great
lot of
guy.
wisdom. Nikki Meyer is also a really uh, just great wisdom and experience and stuff. So really good interviews on that. And yeah, guys, again, if you want to join our community, here is the link. And we welcome anyone in recovery or thinking about getting into recovery, and or lastly, if you do want those free resources to help you get, just find some extra help and stuff, that link will be in the comments as well, so you can check that out. And here it's right here, Recovery Resource Guide. Again, over like 25 different books, movies, online meetings, resources, YouTube channels. Most of these are free. You might have to pay for the books and the movies, but everything else is free, which is, I know I needed that when I was getting clean. So huge stuff. And after hours here, copy and paste this into your chat. We'll wait like a minute or two here so people can copy this link, and then we'll um, dive on over into the after hours show. So Kim, yeah, thanks for doing this. This was great, and thanks for everyone who showed up and commented. This was really cool, and we're really excited for what's to come in the next. I mean, whenever, and I'm just really really happy to be doing this. So big shout out to Phyllis. Thanks, Phyllis.
Yeah, thanks, Phyllis and Cristiano.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Cool. Talk soon. Peace.